Hi, I'm your host, Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and I'm really excited today to welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast, all the way from Seattle in Washington State, the USA, Bryan Rutberg, who's the founder and principal of 3C Communications, the customer connection company, and he delivers the right combinations of communication and laser-focused customer advocacy there. I'm really excited to speak with Bryan today and explore more about the work he's doing and also some of the special language he uses, because I know it's quite innovative. So welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast, Bryan. It's a great privilege to have you as my guest.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here with you.
Now, you do a lot of speaking, training, and consulting, and you also have a new ebook that you were telling me about earlier called Love and Profit, 10 Ways to Transform Customers into Lustomers. So there we have some hints as to some of the special language you use in the work you do. So looking forward to digging into that more. Before we do that, though, what's the impact you're making in the world today?
I'm bringing more love into the world, which is, it's an important thing to do. I try and do it in my personal life, and it's been a nice cap on my career that I found a way to help clients do it in my professional life as well.
Excellent. So when you say bringing more love into the world, I sort of get that at one level, but in terms of the professional arena and working with businesses, how does it work there?
Well, no doubt you've used the word love in a business context. I love this restaurant. Oh, I love my new car. Or, I love the person who, the plumber who came to our house because he or she was just so, easy to work with or explained things so well. Getting that at an organizational level and getting that with the benefits that accrue from building that kind of a love in your customer base. It's not romantic love. It's not a lustful love, although we do use the term lustomer, and we can explore that a little more later. But it is a way of when your customers say, I want you to succeed because you do good work and you matter to me, and you help me achieve my mission. This is what love looks like. And love has actions. It's not just an emotion. And again, there's a separation between the personal form of love and the business form of love. But the actions that tell you a customer really does have your best interest at heart and values what you bring to them: referrals, references, mere longevity, and the willingness to tell you how you can help them more because they genuinely enjoy doing business with you. That's the kind of love that I like to talk about in the workplace. It's all relationship based, and it's all about how brands not only show the love, but how they intentionally capitalize on it.
Yeah, I sort of see that as encapsulating just a total care package for the customer, but genuine care rather than people use that term in business as almost as lip service in some sense. There's a customer care program, and often that just means you get bonus points for buying more. Well, yeah.
And when that translates into working with your customer support group and measuring things like how long was the call and how quickly did you effectively get rid of that pesky customer, metrics like average call time to a call center. I love when organizations stop thinking that way and start thinking about time to solution, approval of the process, willingness to say nice things afterwards. Those are the sorts of metrics that help you build something for the long haul that is not merely transactional.
Yes, I just had a really bad experience with an organization who I won't name here, that I was actually dealing with them on behalf of one of my customers whose website we maintain. And the website went down, and the hosting company that it was on, I had access to the account. I contacted their support and they put me in long queues. When I finally got connected on the call, they hung up. It was like, press 1 for this issue, press 5 for that issue. So I went through all of that. Then enter your customer number, and then there's a reference number you have to have that is authentication. That's all fine. I'm happy with all that. But then when I finally did get to speak to someone, and this took probably about half an hour, about a problem that probably wasn't that complex, but they needed to do something to solve it. And then they hung up, and that happened a few times. And eventually I contacted my customer and I said, this is hopeless. Your website's been down for several hours now. I've wasted more than 2 hours trying to get a hold of these guys to sort it out. My suggestion is we move it to a different host where I know the support is good, first of all, to get the website back up, because that's the first priority for you. And then once we've moved it, you tell them to refund whatever's outstanding on your account and shut it down. That's what happened. That's what we did, simply because they didn't look after me as their customer, their first point of contact. And it was just a really bad experience. And unfortunately, that's all too common, isn't it?
Unfortunately, it's all too common. Exactly the right words. Yeah, first of all, the industry that you're speaking of, things related to web hosting and anything electronic, much like what are the other industries we hear about so often? Anybody who delivers a line into your home.
Yeah,
exactly. Telecommunication, whether it's your cell phone provider or whether it's a cable television or cable internet. Often it's travel industry. A lot of these industries just have trouble. And I'm sure that there are margin pressures for everybody in this business. And at least here in the States, we've got issues these days with trying to hire because we have a ridiculously low unemployment rate, but there's definitely answers out there. And these things conspire to have the sort of probably technical or technological issues that your client's service provider may have had. The call center system with press 1 for this and 5 for that may have had issues with hanging up on you even when you made what you thought was a valid interaction. But then, of course, you could have gotten to a human who would have perhaps been technically adept, but lacked the human skills to start building a relationship with you and making you feel good about having finally arrived at a point where you could work a problem together and get an answer. I recently have been working with a name in the global cybersecurity maintenance and the cybersecurity monitoring space. And the problem statement that came to me was essentially, our people really understand tech and they really understand cybersecurity. And our customers, by and large, don't. How do we talk to those customers in business English? How do we talk to those customers using some compassion and some empathy in order to make those customers feel good? Because it's essential. I don't know enough about technology or cybersecurity to be helpful to this client of mine, but helping their people get better at just taking a beat and connecting with the human on the other side of the phone. You could have used a little bit of that on behalf of your client. And what did it cost that company? Not only your customer, but you're being kind and not mentioning their name here. You could have given them some negative publicity, but they've also missed out on positive publicity. They've missed out on the customer lifetime value equation.
Mm.
How much do you spend with me? How often do you spend it? And for how long do you remain a customer spending that amount on a regular basis? They lost in every single one of those categories. The customer lifetime value of your client for that company went to zero.
Mm.
And there's no referrals, there's no references, there's
That's
no one
right.
who's willing to help
In
them
fact,
improve their company.
In
Yeah.
fact, I have my client, I have many other clients like that, and I have new clients come in like that from time to time that say, where should I host my website? And I usually will say, go to this company, but whatever you do, I mean, if you choose somebody else, do not go to this company. And I will actually name the company there. So they've lost opportunity as well.
And if you're ever at a cocktail party and you meet someone who works for this company that you're not going to recommend, feel free to give them my name, because those are the kinds of things I love to help with. When we first met, we talked a little bit about my time managing Microsoft's Executive Briefing Center, which was all about building great relationships on behalf of the brand Microsoft with top executives from top customers and top partners of the company. It makes a difference. It generates loyalty. And sure, people expect a lot and they bring you their toughest problems. But when an organization treats it as a privilege to help their customers achieve their objectives, it just switches the perspective around in a really meaningful way.
Yeah, that's right. And it's sort of a symbol of caring. I mean, we all understand that things can go wrong. So, some technical issue can come up and the website can go down as a result. But if the customer, or in this case, me acting on behalf of the customer, feels taken care of and feels as though the other person that I'm interacting with or the company that I'm interacting with genuinely cares about helping me sort out the issue, then I'm okay with that. But if it's like, well, we don't, the sense I got was, well, we couldn't care less. It's your problem.
We have a lot of customers. What's the big deal if we lose one? And that can get you through the day, the week, the month, of the year. It can get you to the next quarterly reporting period, but it's not a good long-term strategy, because unless you've got a monopoly or a duopoly going, chances are continually making your customers feel unwelcome is not a strategy for long-term survival.
That's right. Yeah. When that exodus becomes a flood and the snowball starts to roll down the hill, then that company is going to be in deep trouble.
And who are the first to leave, right? And the same applies to, say, employee relations, right? The first ones to leave are the ones that you would most like to keep, because they're the ones who have other options. And there's good attrition too, and you know this. If you are losing the customer who says the only thing that ever matters to me is price, you can keep your relationship. That may be the right answer for some brands. Great. If that's all that matters to you, that's not how we run our business. And when you get to the customer who really wants a partner in finding their solution, and I spend most of my time in the business to business world, much less in business to consumer, but in the business to business world where there's sizable transactions taking place or regular rhythmic transactions taking place, you've got to care what the outcomes are for your customer.
So yeah, we've gone down this path of customer care, which is a really fascinating one, and there's lots more to discuss about that. But I was really curious, your term Lustomer, tell us a little bit more what you mean by that. I'm sure there's a connection, and so explain that to us and explain why that's where we want to get to with our customers.
Sure. Well, I think of the continuum of customer engagement where you've got a suspect who turns into a prospect who, they buy from you and now they're a customer. And then they buy again and they're a repeat customer, and they continue, and you can call them, a regular customer. And if you notice that they're starting to express a preference, maybe they even can be called a loyal customer. And we're all familiar with what might come after that. They turn into fans, they turn into advocates, and we all aspire to those things. And I was looking for something that just encapsulated all of that and then kind of took it to the next level. And it was a friend, actually, someone I'm in a networking group with, who recommended or suggested the term Lustomer, tying together this idea of, no, it's something more than just a business relationship. I really want this relationship to work. Lust with customer. The customer that has a high customer lifetime value, we all aspire to. The customer who will give you the right answers when you do periodic net promoter score surveys is something we all aspire to. But especially given my experience during my corporate career, where we started to measure success with customers on, would they talk to the press on our behalf? Would they go on stage with one of our executives? Would they say yes to being part of either a focus group one time or an ongoing customer advisory board? Would they literally tell us when they thought something was going sideways before they decided to take some rash action? And would they provide referrals and therefore be worth some multiplier of their customer lifetime value? Because now I can measure them by the folks they've introduced me to continue to do business with me, referrals and references, and starting to gauge what percentage of, say, my total new business came from references as opposed to my own marketing, outbound and inbound activities. That's what separates Lustomer from every other kind of customer. It's the folks who genuinely want to see you successful because they appreciate how you contribute to their success.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And it encapsulates so many different things, doesn't it? And kind of pulls together all of those things. I love the whole focus on this customer lifetime value. I mean, that's a concept that very early on in my business, I embraced very strongly and started talking to people about that. And I have this story I tell about the coffee shop, and it was prompted by, so I go cycling every morning, and usually with a bunch of buddies. And at the end of that cycle tour that we do, we might usually go for about an hour very early in the morning, and then we stop for a coffee at the local coffee shop and have a chat, and then everybody goes on their way. And most people work a 9-to-5 job, so they've got to get ready and get to work. The thought I had there was, it came about one morning, and we'd been going to this coffee shop for years. And one morning, I think it was Easter Saturday or something, and they brought out hot cross buns for us, and they just put it out there. And I thought, that's a nice touch. And then I reflected on that, and I think it was a year later, or maybe it was at Christmas time, and they did nothing. And I thought, that's interesting. I have an expectation now, and they've just disappointed that expectation. So I kind of reflected on that, and I wrote this article about customer lifetime value. And I said, how much does it cost them to give us something like that every so often? And I worked it out, and I said, well, okay, what's the cost of a cup of coffee? It might be $5 here now. The profit margin for them is probably $3. And then I worked it out, and I said, okay, now there's probably 10 of us on average. Some days there's more, some days there's less. But if you say 10 by 7 by 3, that starts to become a big number. I won't do the maths in my head now. It's a bit hard. But that starts to become a big number. But then we have functions, like we get together and say, hey, other bike riding buddies, let's get together with our partners and go out for a dinner here to this cafe because we really like it there. So all of a sudden now, what are you talking about there? Now that might be 30 people, 30 riders plus partners, 60 buying food and wine.
Now, dinner, not just coffee.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then we talk to other people and say, we meet other bike riders, or we meet other people around, so let's meet for a coffee there. So you start to add this up. And I wrote this article and said, the cost of them providing us with some hot cross buns at Easter just as a gift is insignificant compared to the goodwill that builds and the lifetime value that could generate for them.
You're 1,000% right on, and you've given me the privilege of getting on my soapbox and preaching a little bit. The name of the company is 3C Communications, and my starting point is often, how are we talking to our customers? Are we using language that is customer focused and benefit led and reveals the impact that we can have? But what you're talking about, the free something periodically, it goes to the programs that you can run, whether they're customer loyalty programs or some of the things I mentioned before, like customer advisory councils or executive sponsored programs in the B2B world, or running customer events that are unique for your customers. And also the culture, getting the mindset into your workforce such that every strategic planning meeting begins with the question of, what are we hearing from our customers? Or when handoffs need to be made from marketing to sales to customer onboarding to customer support, customer success, through that continuum, are we always honoring the humanity of the people we engage with? And are we always thinking about, how do we help this customer achieve their mission? So we've gone from just the communications to the things that your coffee shop could have taken a lesson from your writing in their programs, and their culture might have led them down a path to, as my favorite little bar here in my neighborhood in Seattle does. When I call for the check, very often there's maybe a little half shot of whiskey that finds its way to me along with the check, especially if they know I'm just walking the 6 blocks home. Just a little, hey, thanks for coming in, it's always good to see you, kind of thing. That's what builds the loyalty that has turned this place into my place that all my friends know, that's made its way into one of the songs that I've written, that was also the place my wife and I bought out for my 50th birthday and recently my 60th birthday. These little things just make such a difference, as you experienced with the hot cross buns, and then wondered, why aren't we doing more of this?
Yeah, exactly. And there were, like, we have lots of different coffees at different places when we're out riding in different environments, and there's been some real contrast ones there. And I think there was a contrast experience I had that I wrote that article then to reflect on that. But it's like what you were saying, when you're sending your friends there, you're having a big function there, booking out the whole place, and presumably you've had lots of people join you in that celebration, and every one of those people had the opportunity then to experience that special treatment that this restaurant or bar provided. And so all of a sudden now they've got a whole lot of potential new customers.
A quick add-on to that story, as we were discussing before we turned on the recording, my family just celebrated my daughter's wedding, and 2 different out-of-town guests texted me upon their arrival, before I had a chance to get together with anybody and before the weekend's full festivities began, and said, what was the name of that place and where is it? I want to check it out, because they had seen or heard me talking about it, or they'd been there on a previous visit. So my little favorite bar restaurant picked up 2 additional checks because we had people in town for the wedding. But it's the principle of the thing, right? I mean, now they know this is my place.
Excellent. All right. On the subject of communication, I know storytelling is something you're very keen on as well. And so how do we bring storytelling into this? I mean, we've both told some stories here about experiences we've had that relate to this concept of Lustomers, but how can we consciously as a business bring storytelling into this to, I guess, make it customer centric and make it bring value to our customers?
I like to start from the top and the bottom at once when I'm working with an organization that says they want to get better at storytelling. From the top, you want leaders to show the way and begin using more stories in their communication with their organization, or their communication with their customer or partner base, or even their investors and their board. Because when leaders do it, it has an amplifying effect. Not only does everybody in the organization hear the story and then get a chance, if they hear it a couple of times, to start learning how to repeat it, but it makes it easier to start taking the people who are in the best position to collect new stories, frontline marketers, sellers, customer support folks, onboarding folks, if you're in an organization that has a special consulting group that works to bring customers aboard, and to encourage them to look for the right stories of how they drive customer success and what customers have been able to do because of what your organization contributed. When you've got the ethos being spouted from the top, and you begin rewarding the activity of collecting and telling stories, and you begin to encourage storytelling at staff meetings or in your newsletter or on bulletin boards, suddenly you start becoming a story collecting organization and a story trading organization, which are the first steps towards becoming a storytelling organization.
Yeah, that's fabulous. And I've recently starting to actually collect some of the ideas I have. If I have a thought and it's something that I want to talk to somebody else about, I start to write those down and say, well, that's a story that I can use, and then I can just refine that and see where it is suitable and fits. So I love the idea of becoming a story collecting organization first.
I did a keynote presentation. Frequently, clients will bring me in to talk with their groups en masse, often before we begin some sort of a workshop series. In this case, it was a commercial real estate company. And during the course of my 90 minutes with them, kicking off their weekend of activities, I had 3 members of their team come up and tell stories that I had previously vetted and created a couple of slides for. And with each one, I asked the assembled group, about 100 total employees, for how many of you was this the first time you've ever heard this story told? And when half or more of the hands in the room went up, I just looked at the table where the leadership was sitting and said, this is a red flag. How is it that not everyone in this company can tell this marvelous story? So I gave them their beginning down that path. But yeah, collecting, as you're suggesting, collecting those stories and having some standard lore. This is what our founder believed in, and this is why she started the company. This is our most successful customer and how we contributed to their success. There's some standard stories out there that any company can begin to develop and then teach how to capture. Then there's the whole skill of getting your folks who are doing the marketing and the selling and the customer engagement once they've become customers, how they can get more comfortable telling stories and moving from just the facts to let me get your emotions going also.
Yeah. And what are some of the things to consider in making that transition?
You're speaking of how to get people to be more comfortable telling stories?
Yeah, to be more comfortable telling it, but also telling them in a way that genuinely connects with people at an emotional level.
Practice. Practice. This is a sizable part of 3C Communications business. It's taking professional groups, often sellers and marketers and customer support folks, but now and again, even folks in finance or shipping and receiving, taking them and doing half-day or full-day workshops to build the skill of customer-focused communications and teaching them the art of storytelling. We spend some time on things like, what is a narrative arc and how do you build some rising action, introduce some sort of complication, and then putting your customer and their team as the heroes using something that our company has been able to deliver for them. How do you get that emotional payoff? We talk about using strong adjectives and strong language and raising and lowering your voice and using pauses significantly. So all of these little things end up adding up to the ability to tell a good story well.
Yeah. So practice, but there's lots to consider there. And there is that structure. And I know we had a conversation about this in our previous call about the hero's journey, and the mistake I think a lot of people make in business is that they want to be the hero, but they're actually not the hero. That's the customer is the hero.
And yeah, you heard me say, make that customer a hero. One more story, if I may. One of my favorite clients to work with, and I return to them each year around the time a technology company, are getting ready for their big annual customer event. Taking men and women who live inside of their product all work day, every day through the year, and think about the bells and whistles that they're adding on, the new capabilities, the new integrations that they're building in. And because they think about their product as the end goal, they tend to lose sight over the course of a year between their customer events of the customer who's on the receiving end of it. And it's the customer who has their own mission that they wish to achieve and something they are enabling. So as we take them and give them a little bit of a refresher, it's not about your product. It's about what the customer does with your product. And in the case of this company's customers, who are all nonprofits, it's about the good that your customers are bringing into the world, the lives that are being saved, the puppies and kittens that are being saved, the rivers that are being protected, that whatever it is. When you make the hero of your story the mom who could watch her kid walk down the aisle, or the father who's able to watch a child graduate from high school, or then you are onto something. And think about the technology company is a couple of steps removed from the nonprofit that raises the money and serves their donor class that allows the end goal. But when you get the software creator thinking about all the way downstream, now you've got the compelling emotional connection that gets people to say, I love this company, I want to be their customer, and I want to work with them to make my organization successful.
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of examples recently that I've seen where they've taken very much that approach. And I thought that's really very clever, because they've showcased something that, first of all, the examples you gave are things that probably most of us can identify with to some level. And particularly if we have offspring that may or may not have been married or are in that age where they might and have graduated or might be studying. So we kind of see ourselves in the picture of that hero in the story. And then we can very easily make that connection. Oh, that company's contributed to the fund that supported that happening. So all of a sudden, okay, I like that company.
And it becomes this self-reinforcing loop, doesn't it? It's like, I want them to succeed because they are a part of my success. So I'm willing to give back referrals, references, advice, and the benefit of the doubt too. Because just like the example you shared of the hosting company, Had you had a good relationship with them prior, had you felt like they were invested in your client's success, you might have been a little more patient with them.
Yes.
You might have thought of another way to try to get their attention, because you would have seen their mismanagement of that opportunity with you as a blip, rather than ascribing it to, no, this is their behavior and this is who they are.
That's right.
So the people who will, please.
And I might have been, well, I would have, if the relationship is there, I would have been more interested in assisting them to address that issue that they were having in not serving my needs at that particular time. I would have been prepared to say, hey, listen, something's gone wrong here. It's not just my technical issue that my customer's having that needs to be fixed, but your systems are breaking down here in this particular example, and can I help you fix that? But because of the relationship and the way I was being treated, I was like, I don't have time for this.
Well, and it does take a willing recipient on the other end. And here's where the love analogy really does work in the business world. In my long relationship with my spouse, if one of us gets frustrated with the other, we've got a very long history to call on, and we are mature enough to say in our heads, I know she didn't mean that way, or I know that she got caught up in the moment. And I do give that benefit of the doubt. My track record of saying to organizations with whom I do not have a relationship, hey, I see something going wrong here, and for a living, I help companies create better customer experiences. Can I offer a word or two of advice? My track record of getting companies to say, oh, yes, Mr. Rutberg, we are so anxious to hear what you have to say, my record is terrible. Companies, by and large, they either care or they don't. My most successful clients are the ones who do get it. They understand, they have a goal in mind, and they look to me for some outside help in idealizing it and figuring out where they want to go, and then maybe doing some training to get there. The companies that are resistant to that approach, they're the ones I choose not to do business with.
Yeah, and that's a choice we all have, right? But
right,
it's their loss.
I would agree with you. There's plenty of successful companies that seem to have rotten customer support. That's not who I want to. That's not who I want to work with, and it's not who I want to be. So I'd like to find the clients who actually understand what we're after here and find value in it.
Brilliant. Well, I love the love analogy, and there's so many good metaphors there from the personal love situation to the business. Yeah. All right. Well, I think it's a good point now to move on to the buzz, Bryan. The buzz is our innovation round, the same 5 questions I ask of every guest. So the idea being that you'll inspire the listener to go and do something awesome as a result today. Take action.
Excellent.
All right. Well, what's the number one thing anyone needs to do to be more innovative?
Get rid of your ego. Approach every opportunity as an opportunity to be focused on your customer, the object of your action, and to think about the benefit for them. When you let go of yourself, you free your mind and you get the opportunity to innovate, be creative, and serve.
Yeah, I love it. And the ego is important because it's there to protect us, but at times it's also getting in the way. So if we can set it aside in these instances, it's certainly very helpful. And I love how you focus on the serving as well as part of that. I think the idea of innovation in service of others is a big thing.
And people are happy to work with you when they feel they're being served. It only makes sense to me that we try and make other people happy and other people comfortable. And if we set that as a goal, good things will return to us. So
Yeah.
there's your answer
Excellent.
for innovation.
Excellent. What's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas?
Talked to a lot of people, many of them much smarter than I am. And anytime I get the chance to learn, I know I can learn from anybody. And even when I'm just out at a networking event or meeting someone who might become a friend for the first time, I make it my mission to draw them out some and figure out, what do you have to teach me?
Yeah, it's a great approach. And I think it was Bill Nye, the actor, is he an actor, who said
Bill Nye the Science. Yeah.
Sorry, the science guy. It was the science guy.
Because there's two Bill Nyes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There's the one who was in Pirates of the Caribbean. That's the one.
That's right. That's why
and
I'm getting
the science
I'm getting
guy,
confused.
the geeky
It is the science guy. He said everybody knows something that you don't. And I
Exactly.
thought that's a great approach to have in life, and to, when you meet new people, to sort of take an interest in them. And it comes back to this idea of the customer care as well. So caring for that new person, but from a curiosity point of view of saying, "Whoa, I wonder what you can teach me."
The longer I've gone on in my career, the more I spend time, up in the ether thinking about overall messaging and messaging frameworks and things like that, and then the programs that you can drive for customers. I've done less and less writing myself, but the one kind of writing that I still don't hand off to anyone and do on my own, I still love speech writing. My last corporate job, I was an executive speechwriter for the woman at Microsoft who ran the global customer support organization. To this day, 11 years since leaving the corporate world, I still covet those speech writing engagements because it gives me a chance to get deep into someone's head and have them teach me what it is they know, because that's the way I can best reflect them when I come up with the words that they will later say from a stage or from the front of a bookstore on a book tour or something like that. I just dig getting someone to go deep into explaining something that I have no idea of. I've learned about space travel. I've learned about running global organizations. I'm now learning about the world market for hiring and evaluating talent on a speechwriting project I'm on. I wouldn't know any of this stuff. And I find I can help them by coming up with really cool analogies from other parts of what I know that help them explain what they know to the audiences they need to influence. Anyway, getting into someone's head is a real turn on for me.
Excellent. I love it. Yeah. And it's great when you have that opportunity to work on something. I mean, the podcasts for me are kind of like that as well, as that I learn about so many different things that I wouldn't normally get exposed to. And it's just an opportunity to learn.
Yeah. No, we're not, neither one of us could be called young anymore. I won't say anything insulting about us, but and that really is what it has become for me, is if I can take on projects that keep me learning, it is a pleasure to get up and walk over to my office each day.
Yeah, that's a good note. All right. Do you have a favorite resource you use most often?
As someone who likes to play with words, it's so silly and so basic. I almost never don't have an open tab on my browser to merriam-webster.com because a thesaurus is one of the best tools out there. It's super old school. I mean, I no longer have a paper one, but no, just being able to play with words, and a thesaurus is my favorite resource.
Excellent. I remember as a kid, my parents had a thesaurus, and I know it was always something that was trotted out from time to time, and I thought, this is really cool. It's much better than a dictionary.
Right.
I must go back and revisit that tool again.
It just
never
earlier
occurred to me
today,
that you can get them online.
Yeah, well, I was editing a client had written a case study, a success story, and passed it to me for review and reworking and suggestions. And just is this a challenge that their customer is facing, or an issue, or just that little trade-off of what are the connotations of two such similar words, and wanting to use the right one in the right place. It matters. And I may be the only person who will ever notice that, oh, we use challenge in the first sentence and issue in the next sentence, or flipped it around. The right words in the right place put an idea in someone's head in a way that they'll never be able to describe. But I feel in a non-manipulative way, I'm having an impact on the way they approach this, the way they think about this issue.
Excellent. So thesaurus, and we'll have to link to that Merriam-Webster one in the show notes. So what's
m-w.com. It's the simplest thing in the world. Please, excellent. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
That's great. What's the best way to keep a client on track?
This won't surprise you, coming from the guy who runs 3C Communications. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Yeah. Be clear about your intention. Tell them where you intend to take them and what questions you need answered along the way. And then give them regular progress reports as you're getting there. And finally, I'd add, when things go sideways, and they will, approach the client with some empathy and some compassion. Empathy looks like, I know this is frustrating. I can feel the frustration. Compassion is, and I'm going to stick with you until we get through it. If you can do those things, you can keep your client on track, and if not happy at every moment, ready to give you the benefit of the doubt. And by the end of a successful conclusion of a project or an interaction, saying, I love working with those folks.
Yep. So they remain Lustomers, right?
Communicate, communicate, communicate. Don't let them forget that you're out there working on their behalf.
Excellent. Love it. All right. Now, what's the number one thing anyone can do to differentiate themselves?
Probably the same answer as the last question. Just communicate better than anybody else. Demonstrate that you care about the outcome, not because you're ready to be done with this transaction, but because you genuinely care that your customer get the result that they're looking for, that they achieve their mission. Communicate, show the love.
Excellent. Yeah. So communicate better than anyone else and care more than anyone else. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, Bryan, this has been fabulous. Now, where can people find out more about you and the work you do, get a hold of the ebook, and maybe even get in touch to say thanks for what you've shared today?
Please visit 3, the number 3, the letter C, comms, comms.com, 3ccomms.com. You'll be able to learn more about the business, a little more about me, and right there at the top of the homepage is a link to download the ebook, Love and Profit, because I do believe those things are the two most powerful forces that humankind knows. And Love and Profit, how 10 ways to transform your customers into Lustomers. You'll get a couple of tips from communications, a couple of tips on your culture, and a couple of tips on the programs that you can run. Check all that out. And if you still like what you're hearing, find me on LinkedIn or just send a note to Bryan at 3ccomms.com.
Excellent. All right. And we'll have links in the show notes, of course, to those places. So, Bryan, what action would you like our listener to take out of our conversation today?
Let's take one that they can do right now and another one that they can write in their diary to do at a time of their choosing.
Excellent.
First one, approach every interaction with another human being with love in your heart and an openness to having that servant mindset. Know that you can be part of making someone else's day better. Show that love. That's the easy one and the hard one all at once.
That's right. I was just going to say that's easy and hard at the same time.
And it is, and that's part of what makes it rewarding, is when we remember to do it. It is easy. The hard part is remembering to do it and sometimes figuring out exactly how to get it done. The other thing is, please do go download that ebook. If you are a business leader or a business owner and this conversation has sparked something in you and you want to think about how to take it deeper, the 10 tips will get you a good start. If it takes you someplace great, I want to hear about it. And if you want to just talk about it a little bit and figure out where you can go, and perhaps we figure out I can help you with it, get in touch. But go download that ebook. That's the other thing you should be doing after hearing this conversation, if you've stuck with us this far.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, Bryan. This is fabulous. Now, a couple of great actions that our listener can take straight away. Finally, who else should I get on the show and why?
Oh, what a fine question. You know, one of the best business communicators that I've come across in the last several years that I've been doing this here in the Seattle area. Well, I mean, I do it nationwide, but in Seattle, someone I can occasionally go grab lunch or a beer with is a guy named Ian Hameroff, who is just superb at helping people figure out how to talk about their products specifically. So if the real challenge you have is talking about your products before you even get to the point where you're thinking about how to keep your customers happy, you'll want to know Ian, and I'll be delighted to put him in touch with you because I know he loves being a podcast guest as well.
Excellent. Well, we'll get an introduction to Ian from you. That sounds like another fascinating conversation to have, and really look forward to that. Well, thanks so much, Bryan, for your insights and your wisdom today and sharing it so generously with us. I've really enjoyed the conversation. We've navigated through a few technical glitches on the way, but hopefully
Indeed.
everything will appear normal and without those issues when you're listening to this now and watching this. So and enjoy the conversation. So thanks again, Bryan. Really enjoyed it, and please do stay in touch.
Jürgen, yeah, thank you for putting out all the great stuff that you've been putting out over the years you've been doing the podcast, and thank you for having me on. It's a joy to talk about this stuff that turns me on, and I can tell you're pretty excited about it too. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Bryan.